Here we have a 2017 model Citroen Berlingo. It's fitted with the 1.6 diesel engine and has got roughly 73,000 miles on the clock. As part of the service on this van today, I'm going to be doing an oil and filter change. It's in there. So it's quite a popular engine used by several manufacturers, including Ford. I think Volvo use it as well, the 1.6 diesel. The oil filter is located, you can just about see the plastic hex shape there of the filter housing. So we'll crack on and get the filter out. I'm going to be needing a 21mm socket, spanner, whatever you've got for undoing the sump plug. A 27mm, I prefer to use a socket and an extension bar, but you can, I think you can just about get in there with a spanner, although it's a lot easier with this. A little pick for getting the O-ring seal out of the oil filter housing. You might need a screwdriver just to gently aid removing the filter element. Also, you're going to need well, you don't necessarily need a jug. You'll have a 5 litre tub of oil, a bucket to drain into, plenty of blue roll, and maybe some gloves. Right, as with every oil and filter change I do, I like to pull the dipstick up or take it right out. Take the oil filler cap off. You can do one or the other. It just helps to let the oil flow more smoothly out, allowing air back into the engine when you're draining it. So I'll do that to start with anyway. But we're going to get to this oil filter first. And hopefully this, or something will come out. Oh yeah, just have to pull those two ears back. Just want to try and make a bit of space so we can access it. Bit of air inlet trunking. Right, there's the housing. And that is, I believe, a 27mm. Yeah. Right, I'm going to put some blue roll down there. It will be messy, and some will drip out. But hopefully I'll catch most of it. Now that's a bit close to the battery. Got quite a few hoses around that. Right, so it's going to be dribbling out. Flip that over. That's it. Next we'll take that to the vise and get the filter out. Right, these should just pull out. Sometimes just need a little bit of help with a screwdriver. Pop that off of there. So that's the filter. And then we've got an O-ring seal here, which you need a little pick or a screwdriver. That's it. One of those. So here we've got the new oil filter, and it comes with a new seal to go on the housing. It's not a genuine Citroen part. But if you go to your supplier or outlet, as long as you've got the registration number with you, I should be able to recommend the correct part for your vehicle and offer you a selection of different brands. You should be able to pick one up for under £10. Likewise with the engine oil, you'd probably be looking around about £50 for a 5 litre tub of oil. Right, that's the O-ring there, fitted in the groove. You can push the oil filter back in there. It literally pushes down on, and you've got this peg sticking out the top. I'm going to fit this into the housing first to make sure this peg locates into the hole there, and then put the cap on after. So we'll take it back to the vehicle and crack on. So I mentioned about the peg. If you look in there, there's a recess there about the 7 o'clock position, which is where that peg needs to go. If you push this onto the housing, as you turn the housing, the peg does hit a stop and go in there, but I have had them before where they kind of bend over a bit and it doesn't seat correctly. So I just personally prefer to put this in there first. And that's it. Next we'll get the cap on. Right, so I'm just going to pull that coolant hose up. As you can see, there are a few pipes and wires there, so it's a little bit of a wriggle. These housings, they usually have a tightening torque stamped on them, which is usually around 20-25 Newton meters. It's not very tight, so you don't have to go too mad with that. Just nip it up. If you've got a torque wrench to hand, that's great. But as long as you don't over tighten it, just nip it, that's fine. It's probably stamped on the top. Oh yeah, 25 Newton meters. Okay, so that's the filter back in. Get that out of the way. We'll just refit this piece of trunking, which pushes into a plastic housing up there. That's it. And this end locates in there. Lovely. Next we'll take it up in the air and drain the oil out. Right, unfortunately the ramp won't go all the way up. It's got a big roof rack on this van. Right, so the sump plug on this sump bung, whatever you want to call it, is pointing directly downwards. It can be a little bit more messy than the ones that come out of the side, because you've got your hand underneath it dripping everywhere. It's a 21mm, probably a little bit overkill using 1/2" drive, but that's what I had to hand. I prefer to use a single hex socket because it reduces the chance of slipping and rounding it. Right, so that's cracked loose. Bit late, but I'm just going to put rubber glove on now. Quite warm, so you know, the hotter it is, the faster it will come out, because it's quite thin, the oil. It might splash a bit, so have your bucket or drainer ready, or whatever you're using. That's it, we'll just leave that to do its thing for a few moments. As you can see, this sump plug's got a copper washer on it. They're usually fine to reuse several times. Just make sure it hasn't been crushed or split. That looks fine. Obviously you can pick up a replacement whenever you collect your oil filter and oil. So that's just slowed down to a steady drip now, which could go on for hours if we left it. But I'm happy we've got what we need to get out of there. That should do us. Just nip that up. That's all cleaned off. Okay, we'll drop it down and put some oil in. Alright, put the homemade funnel in there. Make sure your dipstick's still pulled or taken out just to allow air out of the engine while you're pouring oil in this time. Just helps to reduce the chance of it all glugging back up out the top. So when I picked up this engine oil, they recommended 3.8 litres for this particular engine. I've got 3.8 in my jug, but I'm not going to put it all in because overfilling can cause damage to an engine, just like underfilling. Slightly different type of damage. But it's easier just to, I'll put about 3.6, 3.7 in, run it up and check it. If it needs any more, I can just top it up. It's easier to do that rather than chucking the whole lot in one go and then finding actually that was a little bit too much. And then you've got to crawl back underneath and try and drain off the right amount, which is a bit messy. Right, okay, we'll go with that first. So all I need to do now is start it up and let it tick over, make sure the oil light goes out. That's one thing about that peg on the oil filter. If it isn't located in the housing, you'll probably have an oil light stay on or flicker. So that oil light's gone straight out. All sounds good. Just let it tick over. It's not a good idea to rev an engine that's just been started up. Even more so if it's been drained of oil. It takes a little while for it to pick it up and circulate. So that'll do. Turn it off there. So we'll just let that stand for 3 or 4 minutes and check the oil level. Right, so on the dipstick here, I don't know if you can see a tiny little triangle like an arrowhead pointing to the top of this lobe basically. That's the minimum mark. And at the top, you've got the triangle pointing upwards for the maximum. Make sure you push it all the way down. Oh, quite clearly you can see. Looks like old oil straight away, which they generally do with a diesel car. As soon as you start them up, they go black, picking up all the remnants of the old oil. So we do need to top up a little bit there. I'll put the rest of the 3.8 in. Actually, I'll leave this out. And then we'll leave it and check it again. Actually, I won't put the whole quantity in. I'll leave that for now. As I was saying, it's easier to top up in dribs and drabs rather than have to crawl underneath and drain a bit out. Don't need to run it up again because the oil filter and everything is already filled with oil. It's already circulated round. So we just need to let that settle and drain down to the sump and we'll check it. As you can see, we're still a little bit low, so I will put the rest of that oil in now. Looks like the 3.8 was pretty much spot on. I'll put that in and I'll let it stand again, and then we'll check again. Right, that's been standing for 5 minutes or so now. Yeah, as you can see, that is just below the maximum, which that's a perfect place to be, really. The longer it stands, that level will creep up fractionally, so I'm not going to add any more oil to it. I'll leave it at that. And all that's left to do now, as I do with most of my jobs, is to give it a little road test. I like to bring it back in and check the oil filter housing, check the sump plug, make sure there's no leaks.